Hello, and officially welcome back to the Healthy Hustlers podcast. To say I'm excited to be here is an understatement because I feel like it's so long since I have been in this format, in the studio, recording this style of episode for you. And there is a big reason behind that. But I know over the last few weeks, I've been dropping some little bite-sized episodes. And although that was a bit of a different style of the podcast, they were just kind of some real thought starters that had been on my mind and a lot of my, truths that I hadn't necessarily maybe felt comfortable with sharing prior. So I hope you got something out of those. I know I have received quite a few messages around, especially the one around signs, and I wanted to share it because I believe it really provides you with so much comfort. When you are moving through something exciting or when you're moving through something hard, having that kind of spiritual connection and those signs and signals, they just bring so much more joy to the process. So I really wanted to share that with you. But welcome back to the Healthy Hustlers podcast. I'm your host, Madeline Carafa, and the podcast is really a series of healthy conversations. And for me, health takes a full circle approach. It is your mindset, your spirituality, your health, and your well-being. And I truly believe that all of those things need to be working in harmony for us to be able to fully thrive. And that's exactly what I want to bring to this podcast. And I have been bringing to this podcast for over 7 years now, is conversations that will really, truly help you thrive. So although there might be a little bit of a different style of content coming, that is all because of this episode in particular that I'm going to take you through today. It is because I am in a big identity upgrade. And I want to share more on that with you because I know you are someone that has probably moved through this so many times, but like I used to, didn't probably have the awareness or even maybe just the language to articulate what you were moving through. So this episode is all about really stepping into your new identity, but the process of that does have what some people might refer to as the messy middle. I think I'm going to refer to it more as the sticky in between. Once upon a time, I would have referred to this as a messy middle because it does. It feels often quite messy. It feels sometimes a little bit like uncomfortable, that it comes with a lot of self-doubt. There's moments of clarity, but then you fall back into self-doubt. So it can feel messy, but because I've moved through this so many times now, I know it's just the sticky in between. It's the moment between your old identity no longer feeling like it fits anymore. Like it feels like you are disconnected to who you used to be and you are in the process of becoming your upgraded identity. That is ultimately what this episode is all about. And if you are in this process, this is the most magical process to be in. Genuinely speaking, I would not share when I'm in the middle of something. But let me tell you, I am right in the sticky in between right now. I'm in the messy middle of my identity upgrade. But the reason why I am sharing this is because I've been here so many times before and I have so much awareness for it. And now that I'm in this again, in that sticky in between, it feels super empowering. It feels very clear and it's very, very exciting. But that was not always my reality. An identity upgrade, it's always happening. We're always going through these shifts because that is the most beautiful thing about being a human. The greatest privilege we have is that we get to wake up every day and evolve. How freaking lucky are we to have new thoughts, new behaviors, new ways of being better, improving every single day. We get to make that choice. So we're ultimately always evolving. However, I find that identity upgrade is quite a transformational process and it feels a lot bigger and requires a lot more of your conscious awareness to move through. So one of my very first ones that I had started to gain awareness for was when I was already a mum of two and I'd been through some really kind of like challenging times, which I've shared a bit on this podcast about already, but I'd been moving through a really challenging season and the identity upgrade I was having was going from a mum of two that stays at home to a mum of two that is very calm, very grounded and has a thriving business while also always being very present with the kids. So my goal when I started my business before I even had kids was to always be able to be the mum who did all the school drop-offs, the school pickups, was a primary caregiver, but had a thriving career. And that has taken a lot of upgrading to do and to have the capacity to hold. So when I first went through it, it felt messy. It felt so messy because I felt like I had been working on this new identity for so long, yet it wasn't fully landing. But then over the last 18 months, I've really truly stepped into that identity, and I am now that woman or that mother that does the school pickups, does the school drop-offs. I'm very present with my kids. I'm the primary caregiver, yet I also have this beautiful, flourishing business around me that feels so freeing because I can do what I love. I can connect with people I love. I can be on this podcast, share with you, but I can also be the mum that I really desired to be. That took a lot of reprogramming. It took a lot of identity work to step into that. And so the reason why I'm sharing that is because maybe you're in one of those upgrades now. This upgrade for you might look like going from the corporate girly who's working for someone building their dream to stepping into your own business and being self-employed. So you're going from employee to employer or self-employed. That is ultimately another identity upgrade. Maybe you're going from the corporate girl to being a mum. Maybe you're about to become a stay-at-home mum. Again, that is an identity upgrade. And there is a lot that needs to happen in between one identity and the next. That in-between period is often where a lot of people get stuck, and where it does feel a little bit sticky, sometimes messy. It's often where self-doubt creeps in. It's often when we do think that maybe we're failing or that things aren't working. And that's exactly what I want to dive into today, so that you can feel exactly like I am right now in that sticky in between, very empowered, very excited, knowing that it is actual evidence and proof that you are evolving, that you are upgrading. Like I said at the start of the episode, an identity upgrade is when your current or your old identity doesn't feel like it fits anymore, yet the new identity that you are becoming hasn't quite landed. So right now, for me, to give you an example of this, what often I find personally happens for me when I feel like I'm not fitting in an old identity, there are usually some conversations or people that start to really trigger me or that I don't like having anymore. I also find that I have less tolerance for conversations that are no longer kind of evolving me or serving me. I also find I get very disconnected to my wardrobe, which is such a funny thing, but it's happened with every single identity upgrade. I will look at the clothes in my wardrobe and I'm like, oh, just don't feel like wearing any of them anymore. Another big one that's been part of this identity upgrade and why I haven't been producing regular content on the podcast is because I actually felt very disconnected from the content that I had previously been sharing. So the conversations that once lit me up and that I loved having were no longer feeling like what I wanted to share, and they were never coming from a place of overflow. It was almost like I have to do this because that's a part of the identity of the podcast. That's what everyone knows the Healthy Hustlers for. I have to keep doing this instead of it coming from that overflow. So I knew that a big identity upgrade was incoming, and what I've done in that process, so the upgrade process, has been a lot of subconscious reprogramming. So I've been working with a hypnosis therapist, I've been working with an identity coach, and I've also been working with a trauma coach, Jess Eller, who will be coming in on the podcast actually for an episode. Jess works a lot with women who have experienced quite intense trauma. Mine was absolutely not that. It was a lot more of just the old stories I was holding on to from, I guess, school days and schoolyard conversations, comments about being, too loud, too much of a show off, a drama queen, all of those things that were ultimately like dulling me fully stepping into my full potential and fully giving myself permission to share the stuff that lights me up on this podcast versus the stuff I used to share based on what the identity of the podcast had been built around. So that is just a little bit of my overall, I guess, storytelling elements so that you can hopefully see some common ground in that. I feel like it's often these words around like upgrade and identity shifts and recalibrating. It can all sound a little bit loose if we don't have those examples placed in. So it's why I will continue to place storytelling in this episode so that you can just really see yourself in the stories, and maybe you can reflect on moments in your life where those things are happening too. So this is ultimately the sticky in between, because right now you will be shedding old beliefs, old stories, old patterns, maybe even old people around you. You don't want to be around them as much. That is a shedding. So that's like the shedding of the old identity, and you're ultimately stepping into the new identity. So you have these new beliefs, Hopefully you're forming these new habits, these new behaviors. But what happens in this process is when you are doing the inner work, so you're doing the subconscious reprogramming, maybe you're really locking into your rituals and your self-care, maybe you have a lot stronger boundaries, you're saying no without guilt, all of those sort of things, your inner world moves very, very fast. So I find the upgrade in our inner world, our internal world, moves super quick. It happens like rapidly and you're like, oh my goodness, like my whole world is like shifting. But our external world doesn't catch up as quickly as we would probably love. It doesn't move at the same pace because things need to be reworked. Our actual physical reality needs to be reshaped, and that takes time. And that's the sticky in between. And that's a part that we need to actually get really comfortable with and use as the evidence that you are evolving, that you are transforming, that you are actually upgrading. This little period of the upgrade will feel really uncomfortable. And there's no specific timeline. For some people, like for my last big identity upgrade, stepping into, I guess, the woman that I've been in the last 18 months, that honestly took like 12 months. It took so long for my reality, my physical reality, to catch up with my internal world and all the inner work I'd been doing. This year, from December last year, I made a very conscious effort to pour completely into my inner world, my internal world this year, and not so much my outer world in terms of like business coaching, business investments. It was all on my internal world. So I've been to a retreat, which I've shared in the bite-sized episodes. I've worked with some phenomenal like spiritual coaches, therapist, to really just rewire and reprogram me to step into my next evolution. As a result, I felt like my internal world was shifting so quickly. I was like, wow. But the external wasn't. And the reason why the external wasn't is because a lot of my external world that was no longer fitting the new identity that I was upgrading to was actually our physical place of living. And maybe you'll resonate with this, but I truly believe as souls, we are just like plants. So if you think of a plant, every single plant on the planet needs a different type of environment. Some thrive in direct sunlight and with not much water. Others thrive with heaps of water and indirect sunlight. Some plants thrive inside, some don't. That is just a reality of how plants thrive. I believe we as humans are exactly the same. We need the right environment to completely thrive. So for me personally, I have the right environment in terms of friends and circles and people around me. It's very expansive. They're very magnetic. I feel like I'm always being raised higher. I feel like my thoughts and my mindset is very aligned with my new identity, but my physical environment in terms of where we live does not help me to thrive. So a big part of my identity upgrade was actually having to relocate our entire family, not just me, but my 2 children and my husband, to the environment where I believe as a family and as individuals, we will thrive. So we are actually in that process of making a very huge move. And if you listen to this podcast regularly, you will know where that place is. But I'm not going to share too much on that in this episode because I'm actually going to do a full episode on how I've called in that manifestation, because I've been trying to make that move happen myself for probably 5 years, or calling it in. And it's landed with so much ease this year based on this particular identity upgrade and the things that I did in this upgrade to call it in. So I'm going to share that all in another episode because it just has space for its own, and I know you'll get so much out of it. But for me right now, the sticky in between is because I haven't fully stepped into the new reality, the physical reality where we'll be living, that is like the total final embodiment of my new upgrade. But what I've been doing in this process is all of the things that I can control right now. So it's the thoughts, it's the behaviors, it's the habits, it's the way I dress, it's the way I show up. So these are the things that you can start working through. And often you will find that these things are very, very subtle. And that's where we can also fall into the trap of thinking we are not moving towards our upgrade, and we are ultimately failing or doing something wrong. The signs are going to be very subtle. So an example I will give to you is maybe you are working on reacting to your children differently. Maybe you've been like really overreacting and you haven't been nurturing yourself from a self-care perspective. So when the kids are emotional or things are out of your control, you have a very reactive response. Whether now that you've been doing the inner work and you've brought awareness to that and you've been working on that to upgrade your identity, maybe the subtle shift and the thing you notice is when something is out of your control or the kids are having a moment, you're like, oh, wow, I stayed a lot calmer than usual in that moment. Wow, I was really grounded and I didn't just like blow the lid, lose my mind like I often do, or I didn't let it trigger me as much. That is physical evidence that you are upgrading into your new identity. You are becoming. And that's what a lot of this process is. It's the becoming. We need to become her before we fully embody her. And this is this sticky in between, this messy middle is the becoming process. The more that you can find these subtle little shifts, the easier this upgrade is going to be. So my beautiful friend Davina called me the other week and she's like, babe, how are you feeling? I just like really felt called to just check in and see how you are. And I'm like, do you know what? It's so interesting. I actually feel really good because I'm in that sticky in between of an upgrade. And for the first time, I actually am so freaking excited that this is happening because I know it's proof that it's working. I know it's proof that I am actually embodying this version of me that I want to become. This is actually something that comes up often with my private clients in podcasting. They'll come to me, they've done all of the internal work around their mindset, their beliefs, they've invested in themselves by paying to work with me as a coach, they've committed to launching or growing a podcast or monetizing a podcast. So they're leveling up. They're doing all of the things of an upgrade that need to take place. But their external world in terms of their physical environment and the people around them don't all fully match. But at the same time, they're building these new connections and these new people in their world that feel super magnetic and that are ultimately rising them higher. So they're in this sticky middle where they're still having a lot of conversations or people that hold limitations and are keeping them small while also magnetizing in new people. And ultimately, their desire is to have everyone around them magnetizing them. But that, again, it takes time. That takes process. That process in particular for me took years. When I first started the Healthy Hustlers, there was people around me 7 years ago that absolutely were not serving me or calling me higher, but I wasn't fully aware of it at the time. It's taken me years to get to a point where now I'm like, my environment, the people around me are so freaking magnetic. I'm obsessed with every person, every client I have, like everyone in my world is meant to be here. But that has taken so many sticky in-betweens, so many sticky middles to get to that point. But that's also a part of this upgrading process that you might find. You're magnetizing in new people, you're connecting with new people, maybe you're going to events, you're being in coaching containers, whatever it is for you, you're bringing in these new, beautiful, aligned people. But there's also some older people in your world that are holding you feeling a little bit small or stuck. And that is part of that shedding and letting go process. So in that process, what you might also find is that you're starting to not hold as much guilt, saying no to certain people, to holding stronger boundaries around people. You're not the yes person anymore. Instead, you actually take time to see if you desire something, if you want to go to an event, if you want to catch up with someone, you take time and you sit with that so that when you're going to anything, it's from overflow and it's making you feel better and richer. These are all the little subtle signs that you are actually upgrading into your new identity. So please trust them, be excited by them, know that you are exactly where you need to be, and do not let yourself fall into lack or into negative thinking that you're not doing enough during this process. So before we cap off this episode, I just want you to know if you are really resonating with this, or maybe you have a past experience where you're like, wow, this is all making sense. I know when I really first started to kind of grasp all of this and understand the process of an identity upgrade, I was like, wow, all of my previous ones make so much sense. And I was able to just have so much more compassion and kindness for that version of me who thought honestly that she was failing, that she wasn't doing enough, that she wasn't moving fast enough. All of the self-doubt, it all made sense because ultimately I was upgrading. I just didn't have the awareness. all the knowledge to understand that what was fully happening in my internal and external worlds. So like I said, your internal world is going to move a lot faster, but you need to be patient with your external world catching up. So this is a space where you can really lock into the habits, the beliefs, the environments that are serving you. A big part of what I do in this process too, and why I want to give you some tips, I want to give you some really tangible little takeaways. And I want to remind you to use what I give you. Maybe not everything's going to resonate or feel like it's what you want to do, but just move with the one that has the least amount of resistance and just trust the unfolding of all of this. So some little tips, as I said to you at the very start, one of the first things that I recognize when I am going through an identity upgrade is my wardrobe. It doesn't feel aligned anymore. I don't feel excited by my clothes or like I can have my full expression in that moment with the clothes that are fully in my wardrobe. So for me, it's not going out and buying a whole new wardrobe or throwing things out, although that's such a freeing feeling. I do often clean out clothes. I don't like having a lot of clothes in my wardrobe, so that's a bit of a freeing process for me. But one of the first things I do is I create a new Pinterest board and I call it the energy of what I want to embody. The identity that I was embodying 18 months ago, where I was being the mum who could also hold the thriving business, and I was working towards holding that capacity for both. I called my Pinterest board, I think it was called like Boss Mum Energy or something along those lines. That is not the new identity I'm stepping into. I'm stepping into the like cool, fun, grounded mum vibes who already has the thriving business. They're the kind of names that I will give my Pinterest board, and then I will go and look for new styles and new kind of ways of wearing my clothes and pin all of those in a board, and then I'll start recreating outfits. That is one of the first things that I actually shift, because I find personally when my physical appearance matches the identity that I'm stepping into, I feel like things for me just move a lot faster. I embody it a lot quicker and with a lot less resistance. So the place that we're moving, for example, last time we were there, I went and bought some gold earrings from a store there, and I wear them every single day as part of that little identity upgrade. I also started cleaning out my wardrobe and selling things that were very like winter based Melbourne vibes wardrobe, and then bringing in pieces that I feel like really embody the new place that we are moving to and the way I believe I'll dress when I live there. So that is a really big one that I do, and it is a slower process, but it's a very fun and very creative process, and I feel like that actually helps my external world to catch up a lot more. And it also is building evidence. I feel like it's physical evidence for me every day that I'm moving towards that new identity that I'm calling in. The other exercise that I did this time around, so maybe December last year, which was so much fun, because I knew that I was in this upgrade and I was really calling in a big upgrade, I actually popped into ChatGPT a very clear description of who the new identity was, who I was becoming. So I said to Chat, I am in the middle of a spiritual awakening and identity upgrade. I know I'm here because I've already experienced X, Y, and Z. I feel very excited about who I'm becoming, but can you please provide me some guidance so that I can fully start to embody her before she lands? I gave Chat a clear description. I live in this place. This is how I feel every day. This is what my daily rituals and activities look like. This is how much money I earn in my business. These are the type of clients I work with. This is the type of content I share on the Healthy Hustlers podcast. Please give me the rituals and beliefs that I need to have to be able to really anchor into her. And so that was really cool because Chat dropped in a whole lot of affirmations, little rituals that I could be doing, colors that I could be wearing, styles of clothes, the kind of mindset that version of me already held. And although a lot of that I already knew because I guess I have been on this journey, of self-development and identity upgrades for quite a long time now, it was really cool to get a lot more clarity, and there was still a lot on there that I hadn't necessarily thought about. A big one that came up was how grounded I would be and how much I would loosen the grip on any form of control in my life. So my mantra this year became trust the unfolding. And as a result, I completely loosened the grip of any control around our move, and it has just opened up in the most freaking magical way possible. That was something really cool that came from that little exercise with ChatGPT. So maybe you want to go back to a few minutes back in this episode and actually take some notes on that little prompt if you want to have a little bit of fun with that process. The other one I do is really anchor into some rituals and some self-care practices that are going to help the integration. So a big part of an identity upgrade is going to be subconscious reprogramming. We have all been given beliefs, stories, patterns, behaviors from, it's like a computer. Think of your mind as a computer. You have been programmed for your entire life. So until you start doing the subconscious reprogramming, there's always going to be beliefs that stay there no matter how much you kind of upgrade. And I'm very aware of how the subconscious and the conscious mind works because of the work I've done with Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm obsessed with his work. This year, I've really locked into being super conscious of reprogramming my mind to unlock my full potential. And I will be bringing in a few of the therapists that I've worked with to do that. But that process in itself has required a lot of the integration for me. So things for me that I am using is EFT tapping, a lot of visualization, a lot of hypnosis. So I listen to a hypnosis track every night. I do EFT tapping whenever my nervous system is feeling a little bit like overwhacked. And that's the thing about your nervous system in this process. And I should have probably mentioned this earlier in the conversation, but when we are in this becoming and we're letting go of the old and we're moving into the new, that becoming stage, that sticky in between, that messy middle, whatever you want to call it, there is a lot of nervous system recalibrating. So if you've gone from being someone who always reacts to someone who is more grounded and calm, you're going to find that your nervous system needs to recalibrate in that process. So for me, giving myself the tools to allow my nervous system to recalibrate has been really important for this upgrade. So it can be different things: breath work, meditation, visualization. Sometimes for me, it's honestly going to the sauna and doing a visualization meditation in the sauna. And it's just that time for my nervous system to actually catch up. And then I find that paired with the visualization is a really kind of like potent moment for me to really start to step in and embody. And then the final tip I want to give you is to really, truly lock into your habits and your mindset. Really have a clear understanding of what the habits are and what the thoughts and beliefs you have in this new identity. So for me, in my last big identity upgrade, some of the habits were packing the kids' lunchboxes the night before, being a super organized mum, getting up before the kids and showering and getting me ready before 6:30 so that I could then get them ready. It was all of these little habits that I needed to lock into to be able to have the capacity to hold the new identity. Now that looks different because those habits are just so part of my everyday. I don't even have to think about them. But the new habits, in particular for me at the moment, it's the thoughts, is really catching any of the old thoughts of like lack or I can't do this, I'm too much, I shouldn't wear that. All of those thoughts are pulling me back into the old identity. So I'm being very aware of catching those and really reaffirming and locking into the new thoughts and beliefs. So I am a woman that can hold more. I am a mum that can have a super abundant, multi-figure business while also being super, super present with my kids. I don't have to work hard to make lots of money. That has been a big belief for me because I saw parents and my husband who have worked so incredibly hard, and I had a belief that unless I work so incredibly hard, I cannot make a lot of money. And so a belief that I'm really building evidence for is it can be easy, it can be purposeful, it can come from overflow and still make me lots of money. Because for me, money isn't about me being rich and driving nice cars. Money for me is making more impact. It's having better content on this podcast. It's having better things for you, to give you, to empower you, to support you. For me, more money is more impact. It's also more freedom to be with my kids and to give them the life that I believe they deserve. So really lock into those habits and those beliefs, even when it feels hard, even when it feels like you're not moving. Lock in, because this is a period where you are being stretched and where you're being tested to see if you're actually fully capable of holding this new identity. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I could go on about this forever because I absolutely love this topic. If you would like to hear more on this, it's something that I'm very passionate about. So please drop into my DMs. I'm just at Madeline Carafa. I know a few of you, beautiful listeners to the podcast have actually dropped in and just from some Instagram stories I've been sharing about my identity upgrade and like wanting to hear more. So if you are really curious and you want me to dive deeper, please let me know via Instagram. But thank you so much for being here. Expect a lot more solo episodes like this. I appreciate you. Please subscribe to the show on both Spotify or Apple. And we're also now on YouTube, which is super exciting, but I will be back in your ears next week.